Yes, Hamzambo family here. Welcome to the Black Fan Network 54 Correspondence Show. We hope that you're having a fantastic day being on the 7th of April, the year 2022. I want to say karibuni sana to yet another wonderful broadcast. We get to learn what is happening on the beautiful continent of Africa. You might also like to call it Al-Kebulan, or for some people, you would just call it plainly Africa with a K. There has been sometimes people arguing over should Africa be written with a K or with a C, because for many, we do not have many African names really with the letter C. And even when you wrote it in Swahili, sometimes back, I think last year, but one, we happen to figure out that you will not find Swahili words with the letter C. You will find a letter K, for example, with the word karibu. But for letter C, you will not find many words. Of course, you have things like chakula, but for the ones that are certain, that are really not there on the language, is X, as well as, is it X? And I believe that is X and Q. Those are the two letters that you might not find on most African languages, including Swahili, which is one of the oldest languages on the continent, even older than the Arabic language. The Arabic language that came up the other day, and we did have some people arguing that Swahili was made from the Arab language. You cannot have an older language being made by a new language. It does not really work that particular way. You can only say that Arab has some Swahili influence. You cannot go back the other way around and say that Swahili is an Arabic language. It's actually an African language which gained prominence and it became prolific on the continent, spreading from Tanzania, the East African coast, Tanzania, Mombasa. We also do have Zanzibar. We do have Mozambique. I believe we have Swahili speakers in Mozambique. If you go into the DRC Congo as well, you will also find some Swahili speakers are on there as well. So in case you are always looking forward to having one language on the continent that you would delight in learning, I would prefer that you make that Swahili. And I would urge you really to also use different platforms. We have had platforms such as Duolingo. I believe Duolingo is an app that you can also get to check out. For the family, I believe the likes of our sister Angela Morris was with us when we were learning Swahili. And I hope to probably also set it up sometimes again soon. And you can continue learning a little bit of it, so that you do not only know how to say jambo or si jambo or habari yako and mzuri sana, but you are also able to say other things. Anyhow, family, on today's broadcast, we shall be discussing the West African nation of Mali. There has been a couple of things things have changed. Right now, it is simply because of the coups that have taken place. If you go to a country like Guinea, there was a coup in Guinea. There was a coup in Ivory Coast. There was a coup in Mali. And what other country also was involved in a coup last year? I don't really remember the other countries. I believe also I can consider Sudan to have also had a coup because there was a removal of the former president of Sudan. His name was Omar Bashir, and he had led the country for about 30 years. It's only in Africa we have the president. It's only in Africa where you can have a country being led by one leader for 30 or 40 or even maybe 50 years. What is happening in Equatorial Guinea is also not an outlier. In Equatorial Guinea, they have had the same president for 40 years, and you can imagine there has not been any change. If you were born 40 years ago, you would have found the same president. His name is Teodoro Nguema, and right now, Teodoro Nguema is still the president in one of the countries that is considered to have a high GDP per capita, but people are still living in extreme poverty. But today's focus will be going towards Mali. This culture of coups is mostly very common with countries that were former French colonies. So you'd have countries such as Mali, Ivory Coast, I believe, was also former, or Cote d'Ivoire was also a former French colony. We do have Burkina Faso, which is also a country that is undergoing transition right now. We do have Chad, we do have Niger, we do have what other country on there? We do have Togo. Not really much happens in Togo. I don't even remember the last time we talked about Togo on the Fit for Correspondence show because it is a tiny country. I believe it should have been part of Ghana, but for Togo, they were also former French colonies, I believe. For Ghana for them they were a British colony, and we also do have Cameroon, which was partly taken over by the French, colonized by the French, and also a small part of Cameroon, which borders Nigeria, also being taken over by the British, and therefore they have all sorts of problems with that. But today we shall be addressing the matter of these coups that have taken place in West Africa and the implications of security in the region, because at some point people figured, or at some point people said, that because the militia, or the military have now taken over, they had thought that now the military would now be able to combat the militia groups that have been involved in insurgency in the region. If you go to West Africa, you will find groups such as Boko Haram, and Boko Haram is a notorious militant militia group. Also, it's allied to the IS and the Islamic State, and therefore they organize their terror activities in this Sahel region, where they terrorize people by kidnapping people during the day. In a place such as in Nigeria, let me go on the side and talk about Nigeria. In Nigeria, you even have trains being attacked by militia groups. You have a train, you're moving from point A to point B. They come up, they explode the rails, and therefore your train has to be derailed, and therefore you are getting kidnapped, or even your money is being stolen when you are trying to travel in a train. It has become notorious like that, the security situation in West Africa. In a place such as Mali, the problem is even double, because we do have the militia groups, and then we do have inter-ethnic clashes. So you'd have one community, for example, the Fulani fighting with the Dogon, or you would have the Fulani fighting with another one, like the Madinka, or you'd have a Fulani also fighting with another group over the resources such as pastures, because in West Africa you will find that most of the communities there are pastoralist communities, and what they get to do is they move around with their cattle. When one area has been overgrazed, they move from that area, they go into another area, they set up, their new place to stay, and then from there, when the pastures are done around that particular area, they move. So if you're moving from one area going to another area, and you get the area is already occupied, there would of course eventually be conflicts over the water resources and also over the pastures in that area. That is why you will find the inter-ethnic conflicts over the resources in different areas, because of the kind of a lifestyle that people have adopted in West Africa. But you can understand that that kind of a pastoral lifestyle or livelihood, it's of course influenced by the area itself or the environment. This is a place which is dry and it's hot. So even for the breeds of cattle that they get to rear, these are breeds that are considered to be breeds that survive. They are survival. I'm looking for better watches, but these are survival breeds that they get to have on breed in those areas. So the productivity in terms of meat will not be the best. The productivity in terms of milk will not be the best. But anyhow, that is how people get to survive in this area. So for today, we shall be focusing on Mali. But before we talk about this fight of the economic or of the militant groups in these areas, I want to briefly talk about the lost glory of Mali, because Mali was not always like this. We did not have Mali fighting, and we did not have Mali being overwhelmed by these militant groups. That was not always the history. Right now, if you seek to go back into the real history of Mali, you will find of the Asian empire of Mali, which also did have the Timbuktu. And that Timbuktu is a place where we did have the initial or the very first colleges anywhere in the world. Organized learning in a way that you have learning organized in a college, or what we do call now these days of colleges and universities, these higher learning institutions. What used to happen is that you would have those learning institutions actually in Mali, where they were set up first. And that is before even Europe had anything close to a college. That is before even the rest of the world had anything close to a college. It was actually there in Mali. But fast forward, what is happening right now? Before we move to what is happening right now, and before we move to what is the government is doing, because you have a transition government after the removal of the former leader, there was the constitution of a transition government, which is a military government. Now we have a military regime in Mali, which is not also able to combat, which is also not able to combat the militia groups. But let me take you to a project that has been done by Google, and this is known as Mali Magic. This goes back into the original records of Mali, and these are records that were in the scripts. Others were in rock art, others were in other forms where they have been preserved. And Google right now, working with the local communities in Mali, they have digitized these records so that you would know of the history of Mali. And this is on a project known right now as Mali Magic. For those that get to use Google, you would maybe perhaps have come across it. And maybe perhaps you might have a bit of an interaction with the Google and arts segment of, the arts and culture segment of Google. And maybe perhaps you might have seen a little bit of the heritage and the history of Mali. And we shall contrast that now to what is happening in Mali from its days of lost glory. Yesterday and the day before, we were talking about other nations. On the 54 Correspondence show, we purpose to talk about different African countries. Yesterday, if you missed the show, you missed a really interesting part when we were talking about Cape Verde. Cape Verde is an island country of the West African part of the continent. It's an island of West Africa, and we were talking about it being a former colony of the Portuguese. We also do have Guinea-Bissau right there, also a former colony of the Portuguese. We were talking a little bit about their colonial history and also their present day, how it is in Mali, in Cape Verde. But let's just jump into the issue of Mali. I do not want to sidetrack you and take you into a history of other countries before we get to understand a little bit more about Mali. Remember, you can get interactive with us also on our social media platforms and also on our official network website. This is www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. In case you do have a question that you would like, maybe perhaps on a matter you would like to talk about on our next episode, you can actually email blackhotfireafrica@gmail.com, and we would be glad to hear from you. So this is the digital archives. These are the digitized archives of Mali, and this is the legacy of Mali and the people's quest to preserve their culture and to preserve their legacy. And we are talking about a place where they did have the first or the original colleges anywhere in the world. And right now they have gone back into these areas in Timbuktu, the team of experts from Google and also the locals, and they have sort of tried to digitize these content and bring it into a way which is presentable. And I would also be sharing this link with us so that in case you're interested in learning about Mali, it's a geographical location, it's the kingdoms that used to exist in Mali, you can simply get all these information captured on these projects. Of course, what I do have a problem with is that anytime the story is being told from by the European, because this is what is happening with Google, and you'll find a lot of Europeans who have vested interest. in this project. Most of them, they want to monetize because they will now go back and make a movie and say this is ancient Timbuktu, and go back to Hollywood, make a whole lot of money, using the ancient African history without having to pay for it, and also even get the stories wrong about the African history. That is a problem that you do have. But if you do have local people preserving this culture, you might still be able to get it as original and get it in a good area. That would be what would be happening. So in this particular digitized archives, they have presented it in 4 ways. They are according to the 4 M's of Mali. Number 1 is the manuscripts. Number 2 is the music of the people of Mali. Number 3 is the monuments in Mali. And number 4 is the modern or the contemporary art, which is still driving against many odds in Mali. And so let me just click on this, share a little bit on the same, and then we shall be talking about the plight of this country, where you will find that this nation right now, it's nothing close to what used to be in those day and ages. So this is a place where we do have what do we call them? These are Babas, the family, the community of the Baba people. I'm trying to remember this particular name I'm looking for. The Moors. I'm looking for the name, the Moors. Sorry. They should have also put up one of the M's for Mali as the Moors, because the Moors are the people that also went from West Africa, went to civilize the rest of Europe, still came back to the continent. Europe went through it till the Moors went back there for the second time, and they were coming from West Africa and also not parts of Africa, going back there to the second time, and also sort of civilizing the rest of the world. But this history is not really taught in schools. When I was in school myself, what I used to learn a little bit of in history is about the fact that the first Europeans go to Kenya in 1498, and they were the Portuguese. Has been classified as an explorer, but that is not history. That is not African history. No one will teach you about the 25 dynasties in Egypt, and who are the rulers over these dynasties, and also what we can still now salvage from what is left of ancient Kemet. No one will teach you. No one will teach you about Mali and Timbuktu. That is not really taught, because for the mere purpose of them having us not connected to our own history. So you are disconnected to our own past, and that would make you feel as if you have always been, the African at the bottom, with nothing really much to show in terms of a legacy, historical legacy, in terms of exploits that have been done by your own people, by your own ancestors. That is the sole reason as to why there is an alienation of the African people from our own African history. So I would say, when we delve into this project, which is the Mali Magic, talking about Mali, I would also like you to be with an open mind, and also realize that not all the facts stipulated here I'll put in from an Afrocentric perspective. They will be from a Eurocentric perspective in most of the cases, because for the Europeans, since they took over the world and now they are in control and they have the power, most of the stories, even African stories, are told from an Afrocentric perspective, which makes them, the saviors, or they makes them the heroes, or they makes them it makes them the heroes of the story, whatever aspect that you want to look at it. So we did have Timbuktu, and Timbuktu was a city which did exist at the edge of the world, where the southern stretches of the Sahara. Like I did say, when we talk about ancient Timbuktu, in Timbuktu, the people's riches or the people's wealth was measured according to how many books you have. How wealthy you are considered to be wealthy if you are a scholar. Scholars were treated with respect, and they were seen as people making vital contribution in the society, such that if you did have many books, people would consider you to be one of the most rich people. Other things were available. We do have sculptures from back in the day that show that people were still living in royalty. People are still living in royalty. And to attest to this particular fact, if you go to museums in England, or go to museums in Germany, or go to museums in France, you will find many items stolen from the nobles in Africa during colonization. And these were items that were passed on from one lineage to another lineage. They were passed on from one lineage to another lineage. So you cannot say, oh, the people of Mali, these were living in poverty. We did not have the royals. We did have the royals, and they were rich. When you talk about the richest man in African, in the history, not just in African history, but the richest man in history, this happens to be a man from Mali. His name is Mansa Musa. And at some point, he decided to tour and go for a pilgrimage. He decided to tour, leave Mali, go up all the way into Egypt, and also cross into Arabia, go for a pilgrimage. And what happened is that he carried people, and with him, he had tokens of gold. So, for example, when he went to Egypt, and bought so much things, he was giving out gold. He did not hold back on his own gold. So what did happen with them? Apologies, family. We do have the schools being closed, and that is why you might find a bit of a noise coming from the outside. But the thing is, when we did have Mansa Musa, he was traveling around the continent, trying to go into Egypt, then cross over, go to Arabia for his pilgrimage. He went with so much gold, giving it out, not even really caring whether he's getting the value for what he's giving. For example, if you went to Egypt at a market in Cairo and he wanted to buy maybe some artwork, he would overpay for that artwork, and this eventually caused a problem in the economic system of in the economic system of Egypt at that particular point, because of the all gold he was moving with. He used to move with the entourage like this, camels, I believe, even horses, move with an entourage like that, and have people carrying gold. His entourage, everyone donned in good clothes and things like that. That is not taught in African history. African history, we are told that people were in the forest, they were doing hunting and gathering. People were living in deplorable conditions, but that is not the case. And these digital records from the Mali magic, they will prove to you that people were living well. And there was a standard of living, not just in Kemet, which was considered to be the height of civilization on the continent, but even in other parts of the continent, in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa. At some point on the 54 corresponding show, I have also taken you to Zimbabwe. You have seen the Great Wall of Zimbabwe. And that was a well-fencing community of people that were living very well. They were not living in poverty. They were living very, very well. But anyhow, talking about Mali, let's go back to it. So there was rich scholarly tradition. There was architectural and connect the two. You might not be able to understand really what has happened from ancient days. Apart from that, when you talk about scholarly excellence, Mali being a center of scholarly excellence, what you realize is that they did preserve their knowledge, not just in oral form. In the most African communities that you go to, you will find the African preserving their history in oral form. So, for example, you will have the grandparents teaching their grandchildren about a particular. They're teaching them in a particular field, or they're transferring knowledge in a particular field. So, what they would do, they would have songs, and they would have folk tales, and they would have stories, which is oral literature, transferring this knowledge from one generation to another generation to another generation. But for the people of Mali, they did have their knowledge stored in manuscripts. And these are some of the manuscripts that have been preserved. So most of them are right now being digitized. Some of them, it might be difficult because, the writings do change over time. Their system over their writing systems is different. But of course, at Timbuktu's literary history, it represents a key pillar of cultural legacy that Mali has inherited and preserved over the centuries. Erudite knowledge of the Islamic world, mainly of the 14th to the 16th century, was documented on a beautiful script decorated on folios, which are known today as the Timbuktu manuscripts. When you did have the invasion of Timbuktu, in some years, you realize that a lot of manuscripts were lost. So what was salvaged, or what was left, is really not a lot. You cannot talk about the original. Most of the manuscripts that were left behind, some of them were salvaged, but very few of those were salvaged. You will find a whole collection of manuscripts like this. And though the known text number around that is 377,000 pages, the manuscripts owe their survival to the individual families and households of Timbuktu who have safeguarded them for centuries, and to the people who have evacuated them to safety after extremists seized the city. So we have seen the destruction, even by extremists, the militant groups, destroying some cultural, historical, or cultural heritage sites, because for them, they do not see these as having any value for these militant groups in Mali. But it's also important to realize that there were families who decided to take over this knowledge and move it from one generation to another generation to another generation. And when you're talking about the knowledge of the Mali people, or let me just say the African people in Mali, what does happen is that their knowledge is expansive. And we even talk about the knowledge of the cosmos, people who get to understand even the Yuga cycle. The doggone knowledge of the cosmos was even able to baffle the French researchers and the French, the French researchers who are experts in that field in terms of the knowledge that they got from the Dogon. Of course, not all the Dogon will go out and say their whole knowledge. They have preserved some knowledge and kept it themselves, because they know once you give this knowledge to the European will use it to your own detriment. The European will find ways of actually weaponizing this knowledge so that it works to your own detriment and to their own power. For the European, we know what they have done is really held the whole control, or tried to work to destroy and to make sure that they get a hold of power. So I was saying that for the knowledge, some of the knowledge, of course, will not be found in these manuscripts. Some other knowledge, of course, might be found in these manuscripts. And this has been on digitized records. You can access some of these records on our Google Arts and Culture. But like I said, I do give a disclaimer. Realize that from what perspective some of these explanations are being given. Most of the time is from a Eurocentric perspective, and therefore sometimes it's upon you to also fill up some pieces of the puzzle and also get to do a little bit more research on your own self, so that you can come to a more knowledgeable conclusion or a more insightful conclusion. Bombi Damfa, thank you so much for joining us. You saying greetings, family. Greetings to you too. I almost forgot the name, the Moors, and the Moors did also play a part in terms of these history of Mali and also the Timbuktu. I was saying that there has been the digitizing of these records. You can now access them. You can look into that. When you talk about West Africa and also the outside of the rest, outside the West Africa and the diaspora, what you will find is that some people in the diaspora, who are trying to trace back their roots, trying to trace back their roots. Maybe perhaps you want to go back and find out, maybe you're in the diaspora, you're in the USA, you are in the Caribbean, you are in South America, Brazil, you are outside there, you are African in the diaspora, and you want to come back and trace your roots. Sometimes people want to go to places where maybe they might feel, if you're now maybe perhaps starting from a zero, maybe you might do a genealogy test or do something like that, which might show you where originally you're from. Personally, I do not really believe in the accuracy of the genealogy test. You might try and see maybe perhaps you came from an area around West Africa, but you're also trying to figure out what part exactly in West Africa. Right now, we do have Benin, we do have Nigeria, we do have Niger, we do have Senegal, we do have Gambia, like where Bombi Damfa is from. We do have Ivory Coast. We do have all these other places in West Africa. You want to circle in and find out exactly where. Sometimes because of the conditions right now, people might not be able to do that. But maybe perhaps using these digitized records, maybe perhaps you might also find something that might also interest you. And that is why I decided maybe perhaps it's important also for me to share a little bit about Mali. Maybe you might find that from the music, from their culture, there are some things that will resonate with you. They might resonate with your spirit, or they might resonate with, there's some way that the universe works. So you never know. But there has now been the manuscripts. They are now under the protection of what you call the Savama DCI, or the guardians of the manuscripts. who seek to document, digitize the artifacts that remain while maintaining Mali's tradition of academic study. I would say right now, people in Mali are concerned about surviving. Not many people are concerned about digitizing records. The situation is so bad. For example, in central Mali, when you talk about Mali and whomever mapped out this nation right now, what you have as Mali, the map of Mali is really something that is so much irregular. It's a whole lot of a confusion. But leave alone the part of the confusion. Let me just show you how the map of Mali looks like. And I would say that people right now are surviving. We do have the capital city, which is known as Bamako. And even in Bamako, you will not find people living well. People are not living at the high standards you would imagine. A map of Mali. Let me just show you how Mali looks like. But I was saying you might find information that is also pertinent and information that maybe perhaps would help you. This is how Mali looks like. And we were conversing the other day with a friend and talking about the United States and how for some of the nations or some of the states in the United States, how some of the states their map is regular. So you would be able to also see the outline. It's very, very regular. It looks like a square or it looks like a box, a rectangle. It looks like maybe like some form of a circle. For Mali, this is Mali. This is a present day Mali, and you also have to make a distinction. It does not mean that the Mali, the Timbuktu, and the Mali Empire is what we do have now as a present day Mali. That will be historical inaccuracy. What we do have today as a present day Ghana, that was not the kingdom of Ghana. It was not the kingdom of Ghana. It did encompass different geographical boundaries. So it's also important to also put that into consideration. So this is a map of Mali here. And you will find the capital city. We do have the capital city, which is Bamako. It's really, I would consider it maybe to be in the south, if I might use that. That is the description. But the central part of it, we do have a town or a region known as Mopti. This is in Mopti, where we do have the most insecurity. And now for the forces to be able to move from Bamako, going all the way into Mopti, moving from Bamako, going to respond to an attack in Mopti, sometimes you do find many people having been butchered in this particular place. But leaving that alone, I'm just talking about Timbuktu. And of course, Timbuktu, we are just drawing a contrast between what used to be back in the day and what you do have right now, which is a very wide discrepancy. You cannot even get to be able to match the two. What used to be the glory in those days, people living in wealth, people living in security. So right now, people living in insecurity and living in deplorable conditions of poverty. It's saddening. But anyhow, I was just showing you about a little bit about the map of Mali. Of course, this is how it looks like. On the border, of course, they border Senegal, and also they border Burkina Faso. They also border. We also do have Algeria, and then we also do have Niger there on the side, according to this particular map. Just to give you a context of this particular place that we are discussing about today, which is on this side Mauritania, on this side Senegal, on this side Algeria, on this side Niger, on this side Burkina Faso, and those are the places bordering. So I was talking about Mopti, which is most dangerous here, and then we do have Bamako, which is the capital city of Mali, and then we do have other places like Taoudeni, which is at the top or the north here, and Kidal at the east here, and Gao. And also with the border with Niger, the border with Niger, and also the border with Burkina Faso, this is also where we do have a conflict also coming up. So you will hear of an attack in a place such as Mopti, in Sigeu, and also in places such as Gao, and also near the border here. This is where the most insecurity is at. But anyhow, let me just go back a little bit into the issue of the history. We shall go fast forward and talk about the insecurity and how the government is trying to cap that. So because of the interest by some families to preserve the ancient knowledge that was preserved in scripts, most of them have given themselves the responsibility to be the guardians. And of course, I was saying there is other ways in which information has been preserved. For example, in the use of rock art. Rock art is has been mostly used in places such as Somalia. If you go to caves in Somalia, you will find the use of a rock art. If you go to places in South Africa, where we do have caves, you'll also find rock art, which has been preserved. It shows some knowledge, depicting some knowledge. Some of it is artistic in nature. Some of it is also, it has value. It has value in terms of information and education. It has value. Others is just for like people who just do to show their artistry. It really not have nothing to do with any information they're trying to convey to other subsequent generations. But for Egypt, some of the information preserved also on the walls, because that way they found it to also last for a longer time. And like we have also been taught by Keith, they also discovered that we were going to a decline. We are we were going to a sleeping period. Right now we are getting to awakening, but we were going down a decline to a sleeping period where the African would even forget, who we are. But luckily, we still have some manuscripts, we still have some art that has preserved some of these ancient knowledge, and you can be able to learn and understand a little bit more about all these records that have now been digitized by the people of Mali. Apart from that, we go into music. Music is also another important aspect of Mali's history and also its cultural legacy. We do have tribal music, tribal dances, and things like that. If we're talking about the music itself, music is also a way, I would believe music is also a way for these, for the people of the African people to also be able to tap into another different realm, to also be able to tap into another different realm. For the people of Mali, for example, the Dogon, they used to do their own dances. And these dances, I would say, also help them to get into another realm and also to be able to maybe perhaps communicate to the spiritual world. That is my understanding. If you go to different African cultures, African communities, they did have some rituals. Some of these rituals involved music and dance. And why would you involve music and dance in your ritual? Because these also maybe perhaps opened up a portal that would enable them to speak to the realm of their ancestors, and maybe perhaps get some knowledge from their ancestors, or maybe be able to tap into some other kind of a sphere. That is my thinking. So for the people of Mali, music, the traditional dances, these are part and parcel of what they do and who they are. So let me share with us some of the Mali dances so that you can see for yourself. And also, it's very important to see that when people are taken from the continent, people were snatched from the continent. They were taken into Europe. Some others were taken into the USA. Others were taken into South America. Others were taken to the Caribbean. For some of the people that were snatched from the continent, others still held closely to their music, because music is something that becomes part of you. You might still have a song that you had when you were 3 years old, and when the song plays, you still can be able to connect to that music. So music, I think, becomes part of your DNA. It becomes very part and parcel of you, I might say so. But let me see if I can get these Dogon dance, and you can see how it was practiced. And maybe perhaps it might also interest you to follow up and see what are the things in terms of rituals were conducted by the people West Africa. In Mali, different we have different tribes in Mali. I am not sure. We might have about, let me consider for countries such as Nigeria. I know they have about 200 different ethnic groups in Nigeria. For a country which is also neighboring there, which is Cameroon, they have about 200 Apologies, family. We had a bit of a hit right there, but I want to thank you so much for your company joining us on the show for today. It's always a delight. In case you want to share with us anything or a question about Mali, please feel free. We do have, I believe, a Bombi Damfa. He would also be in a good position. Coming from West Africa as well, I believe also Bombi Damfa would be resourceful in terms of getting to answer a little bit about any question from West Africa. For the tribes, I will be taking that. Let me see how many tribes. I wanted to ask how many tribes you do have in Mali, because you might also be able to understand better, why we might have all these internal conflicts inside there. So let me see how many ethnic groups. How many? From the ones I do see here, they are about 10 groups. We do have the Fulani, we do have the Sarakore, we do have the Senufo, we do have the Bambara, and we do have other different ethnic groups. But the Bambara is the main, or is the largest, constitutes the largest demographic right there in Mali. But besides that, let me just share with us these dances so that you can also get to understand a little bit of Mali from a historical perspective and also to the current perspective. And we can get to move further in that particular knowledge. And I was saying, sometimes you might not be able to go to Mali. If you're trying to trace your roots and it's from West Africa, you would like to take a tour, see Mali. Sometimes you might not be able to do so. But when you do have when you do have digital platforms like this, you might be able to learn a thing or two about Mali. Let me share a little bit of the same. This is in Mali, the Dogon, and this is the traditional dance. Let me just go back to this map here. This is where you find a map Mali situated. Let me just pause it here. Yeah, this is where you find Mali situated. Like I was saying, its map is the shape is very irregular. It borders Nigeria. On this border here is where we shall be talking about as we proceed. The or the insecurity, and also with the border with Burkina Faso, the insecurity is also crazy around this particular area. And then we do have these other borders. With Senegal, is not crazy. It's not as bad with Senegal. It's not as bad with Guinea, but with Burkina Faso and Niger, that is where we have the problem with Mali. But let me talk about a little bit about its people, its culture, and also its history before we get into the present day.
Gaan over het dagelijks Dogon-leven en worden bij diverse speciale gelegenheden opgevoerd.
So these dances that I'm sharing now with you, like I did say, they are conducted at special occasions. We have different dances for special occasions, and also the music. There is music design or designated for special occasions as well. You do not just sing that music any other time that you feel like.
De meeste Dogon-maskers hebben een religieuze betekenis. De maskers bezitten een eigen macht. Maskerdansen zijn voor de Dogon dan ook altijd een zeer serieuze aangelegenheid, waarbij de dansers worden tijdens het dansen één met hun masker. Ook de kleding behoort.
I apologize. I think like the quality of this video is really bad. You cannot really even be able to make out most of what is happening. Let me switch to this other one and see if we get a better view of this video, because the other one, the quality is too bad. there are some things that I fail to understand on the continent, and very few things have impressed me about some of the practices that you will find on the continent. But this one stands out, and you have to ask yourself, why are these people have to be on those sticks? They are like the long sticks that they are standing on, and there are some things customary. There are some cultural things that are done on the continent. You might try find a reason, maybe from a superficial level. You just understand, why don't you just dance when you're on the ground? Why do you have to be on those particular huge sticks there up there? It might have a special meaning. Personally, I do not know. It might have a special I get to shock me. I have seen at some point something else that did shock me on the continent. These are the Bodoma people of Zimbabwe who have ostrich feet. And I go to ask myself, why do these people have the feet, the genetics? Why do they have feet that looks like the feet of an ostrich? They are called the ostrich people in Zimbabwe, and I do not really get to understand. There are also other people, other customs, traditional practices, where I did see people dancing on top of their kettle. And I was just asking myself, why do you have to be dancing standing on top of the head of a kettle? It does not, there are some things that are really, but anyhow, I respect all traditional practice of different people. But for the Dogon people of Mali, they were not just people who did not have a knowledge of anything. They have the knowledge of how the universe works. Some of this knowledge has been passed on in a lineage, according to an ancestral lineage, so that not everyone has this knowledge. Not everyone is considered to be the guardian of this knowledge. Only a few of the families are given this right. For example, in Kemet, is the same thing that used to happen in Kemet. For Kemet, we used to have the priest line, and the people in this particular priest line were the ones that were given the responsibility of holding such information that have to do with the spiritual systems of these particular people of Kemet. So I would also imagine for West Africa is the same thing. I promise you I will be sharing this particular link of what is happening with Mali. This is known as Mali Magic, and this is our focus for today. Then apart from that, we shall also be talking about the fight against insecurity in Mali right now, because this is a history of the olden days, but in the new days, things have actually changed. These days, there's a whole lot of a problem with insecurity. So, while the late 20th century vinyl collection captured the sound of Mali musical golden age, iterations of which can be heard in American blues, Grammy Award nominee Fatoumata Diawara ushers Malian music to the front of the music world scene, embedding the heritage into every track she performs. I know over these are Fatoumata. I think she won a Grammy. I'm really not sure whether she won a Grammy, but yeah, she was a Grammy Award nominee. I don't think she won it. But Fatoumata Diawara, I think there is even a goddess known as a Diawara, if I'm not mistaken, from West Africa, who they used to pray to upon when they used to have an ample harvest. They used to give their sacrifices to and their reverence to these Diawara. I think they're called the antelope. Was it the antelope man? They have so many deities in West Africa. I'm not be able to get into that for today. I'm also doing a research on that, so I do not really know much, but I have seen some of the artifacts which depicts these deities in that particular country. For monuments, this is a monument. These are the monuments that you will find, and the landscape. They have a unique cultural landscape which is made up of mosques, is made up of mausoleums, and it's also made up of monuments. And like I did say, the architecture, you will find that the architects are also being influenced also from other travelers that came into Mali. It was a center of scholarly excellence, so people used to go to Mali, to Timbuktu, and get to understand more about medicine, get to understand more about other sciences, maths, and things like that. So they used to have their own monuments, and also their mausoleums, and also they did have the colleges. So you might find structures such as this, looking like this. Let me see if I can. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. You will find structures looking such as this. they might not be as what can I say? They might not be as architecturally superior than what you might find in maybe Kemet, Egypt. They might not look like the palaces and other noble family houses in Kemet. Neither would they look like those palaces that are the mosques were constructing in Europe. We have a couple of palaces, and those are the palaces that were constructed by the Moors with the Moors architectural ingenuity. They might not be as to that level, but this is ingenious. So you will find these being unique to Mali. These are the designs that you will find in Mali. Like I was saying, some militant groups have come up. Sometimes they have destroyed some of these monuments. Some of these monuments also did have inscriptions on them and other details on the rock. And therefore, most of this information has been lost. Other information was stored in form of a manuscript. But nonetheless, I do believe that us as an African people, we can be the only ones that can safeguard our own history and our own culture and preserve it in its original form. Because like I said, when this history and this culture and this knowledge is being preserved by other people, they tell it from their own perspective and in the perspective that gets to benefit them. Well, as an African, we are told you cannot amount to nothing. You have not amounted to anything before. You have always been in poverty. You have always been in with Muslim, with the Islam religion, and you have always been with Christianity. But these are new religions. Like I did say, for the people of Mali, the different groups in Mali, they have their own rituals. And these rituals were not Christian rituals. Neither were they Islamic rituals. These were traditional rituals that did show reverence to the ancestors, and also to the all or the supreme being, who was not Jesus, neither was they Allah, neither were they what do you call these other tops or heads of religions in other neither was he the Buddha. He was not the allegiance was given to, they had their own traditional systems, but right now all those systems have been deserted. The other day I was telling us on the network that in a place like Mali, which is a very much Islam or Muslim, it's a Muslim state, it's a Muslim, predominantly Muslim state, and also Nigeria, for the northern part of Nigeria, there was one atheist earlier this week on Monday. This atheist has actually been sentenced to 24 years in prison for blasphemy against Allah. Back in the days, during those times when we did have the traditional spiritual systems, which there's a distinction between spirituality and religion. We did not have religion on the continent. We did have traditional spiritual systems. Back in the day, you would not hear of the issue of people forcing you to ascribe, spirituality and religion, I believe, should be a matter of something you choose for yourself. And also, it should be according to how your compass, I would say your spiritual compass, gets to guide you and direct you. I would say that would be, it's something personal, not collective, like you would have with religion. In religion, it's organized. So that is how it is. But for Mali, which is also, I would say, predominantly Muslim, you would also find problems with that. People now also are inclining towards and forgetting about their deities, and also forgetting about their traditional spiritual systems. There's a problem with that, and this is a problem that you have seen going on with that. I don't know if I share the image. I'm not sure. Did I share the image? I think I might not have shared the image, so you can see what I'm talking about. I think I thought I was sharing the image. This is not the ethnic groups of Mali. These are the image I'm talking about. This is the architecture. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Apologies. I thought I was sharing my image, my screen. This is what I'm talking about. And you can see, apart from being a center of scholarly excellence, it was also a center of also architectural excellence. And also for trade, we did have Mali and the West African area being known for trade. So that would have people coming from very far and wide, from Kemet, from outside West Africa, and also going there and getting involved in doing a whole lot of exchange of commodities. Back then, it was mostly barter trade. I believe also gold might have also been used, but I'm not sure. But I think there was also their own currency, their own trading system, which was barter. Trading value for other items. For example, if you do have a lot of grain, you might have used that and exchange it for something else. That is my presumption. according to what I have learned or I have gathered over the time. But of course, that's a little bit of the same. Let me share this link with us in case you want to check out into this history of Mali, and maybe perhaps some particular aspects of it might interest you. Some other aspects of it maybe you might find not that intriguing. The thing is, the thing with African history, I know it's intriguing, but the problem is sometimes we as an African people only want stories that are intriguing. And if they are really not intriguing, then we think that they are really not African. But we also do have African stories that are really not intriguing, but they really are of value to us at the end of the day. But what I was saying a little bit earlier, of course, the point of this particular show as well, apart from the history of Mali, is that there was a coup that did take place in Mali, and this coup resulted to the removal of the former president of Mali. That was in August 2020. Was it in 2020, 2019? August 2019, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. 2019, 2020. I'll just confirm when the coup was. But what did happen is that the military helped in kicking out the power. When he was thrown out of power, there was now the takeover by the military, and the military also has now severed its ties. The military has severed its ties with France right now. It has severed its ties with France. Of course, we did have a French military force on the ground, and this French military force on the ground was helping Mali, quote unquote, helping Mali combat the militants in this country. And of course, what has happened right now is that all the French forces, they were ordered out of Mali, and the hope for the Mali people, apologies for the noise coming from the outside family, the hope of the Mali people is that they would have been able to deal with the militia groups the military would have been able to deal with the militia groups and bring some sort of a peace and sobriety in a country that has not seen peace for a very, very long time. But unfortunately, what is happening right now is that we are still hearing situations of attacks by different militant groups. And these attacks have resulted to the deaths of many people in a time when people are hoping for a new regime or are hoping for a new predisposition when it comes to matters of security in Mali. But that this has not happened. We have remained to see cases of massacre being reported in Mali. Of course, right now, the government has opened an investigation into the alleged massacre in Moura village in Mali. And the thing is, unless we do have a concerted intergovernment effort, which brings together forces not just from Mali, unless we do have a regional force, then we cannot talk about peace and stability in Mali. And without peace, there is no stability, there is no development in this particular country. That is a problem that we are facing right now on the continent, on the western part of the continent. It's going on. We cannot have foreign investment, happening in Mali, and unless there is an effort, a concerted effort that brings together multiple agencies and also brings in collaboration between maybe perhaps Mali, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, because along the borders, that is where we have the most problems, then we cannot have a solution past that. We would have to start there for us to start moving forward. I don't know how you feel about the West Africa family. Please do let me know how you feel about West Africa. And maybe perhaps what are some of the suggestions or the solutions you would put forward in terms of achieving peace and stability in West Africa? I would love to hear from you. You can hit us up on our social media, Black Fire Africa Network, black.fireafrica@gmail.com or Black Fire Network on Instagram, Black Fire Network on Facebook as well. And we will be glad to hear from you. That has been our conversation for today. Thank you so much for being with us. It's always a delight. Brother Bombi Dampa from the Light. And I also want you to urge us to check out what the family is doing also in Tanzania. We do have Sister Nishi in Tanzania. We do have Katie in Tanzania right now, Dar es Salaam. And we also have Joby. Please make sure you peep out what they are doing and also get to find out a little bit more about Dar es Salaam. When we are on the ground, for example, if I was in Mali right now, I would be able to give you a much better story. The families in Dar es Salaam, they can give you a much better perspective of Dar es Salaam being there on the continent. So thank you so much. For those that have been supporting the network, a much peace and love to you. For those that have not been able to support the network but keep on sharing the links, we still appreciate that support. And we hope that you continue doing the same. Make sure you join us on another subsequent episode of the 54 Correspondence Show, or also on the Africa Today Show later on with the Black Hot Fire Network. For now, much peace and love. It has been wonderful. I hope that you get to gather or learn a thing or two on the network. And in case you would like to ask a question, always feel free to do the same. Peace and love. I want to leave you with this particular one, instrumental as well, from West Africa. I hope that you keep jamming to it as well. Till next time, kwaheri.
Yeah, good.